February 13th, the Big Meech home benefit concert. It's gonna be iconic. Too many names to list.
If you think loyalty runs deep in hip-hop, think again. There's a brewing conflict so shocking, it might rewrite everything you believed about hustlers, bosses, and the alliances they form. One man, fresh out of a nearly 2-decade stretch, was promised the world by someone everyone assumed was his friend. Instead, he ended up with canceled concerts, vanished money, and a public rift that's exposed an entire network of hidden motives. This is the story of how trust shattered in front of the whole world.
In about 10 days, Ross is gonna throw him away. I'm gonna be real with you, Meech. If Rick Ross, seeing what he did to you, because he knew what he was doing standing on the side of him, right?
And how a legendary name got caught in the middle. By the time you reach the end, you'll understand the real costs of betrayal and the reason entire empires can crumble overnight. 15 years is an eternity behind bars. For Big Meech, those long days and nights were fueled by a vision. When he stepped back into the world, he'd rebuild bigger, stronger, and freer than ever. The world of hip-hop was ready for it too. Street corners buzzed with rumors that his return would set off the biggest comeback the industry had ever seen.
I've seen a lot of posts about the Big Meech concert getting canceled. What I'm not seeing is anybody blaming Rick Ross for this. Nobody is saying, yo, Rick Ross is your fault.
Then came the announcements. A monumental concert was in the works. The guest list read like a who's who of rap's elite. Posters teased the arrival of the man who once defined an era. The idea was that this single event would catapult Big Meech from prison to prosperity, from lost time to lost legend found again. It all sounded too good, almost like a Hollywood script. In the center of that fanfare stood Rick Ross, a figure who commanded attention wherever he went. He hyped the concert on social media, dropped mentions in interviews, and gave fans the impression he was doing everything in his power to support Meech's resurgence.
I see him all where he's posting his liquor. You know, he's doing his thing. I even know this game. Look, that 50 Cent Meech he did.
Yeah.
Game even had to respond to that shit.
People got excited. 2 iconic names, 1 massive event, and the possibility of reliving the raw energy that once shook the streets. But if you looked closer, you'd see a different picture forming. More and more rumors circled that Ross's involvement wasn't about reviving Big Meech's brand. It was about strengthening his own. Slowly, the comeback began to crack at the edges. Online arguments, quiet disputes over money, talk of backdoor deals, and then, in one swift move, it all collapsed.
I was like, oh, what is Snoop doing that? Like that, because I'm just flashing through at different points in the Olympics. So certain parts of the Olympics that don't really have me excited.
The concert got canceled. The $1 million promises evaporated. And Big Meech found himself left in the cold. Yet that was only the start. Hidden in this downfall was a betrayal that cut far deeper than a nixed show or lost checks. Rick Ross had a knack for spectacle. He understood that if you wanted the spotlight in hip-hop, you had to make grand gestures. So as soon as he saw Big Meech was about to re-enter public life, he pounced. Private phone calls, social media shouts, even murmurs of huge plans for movies and merchandise. Everyone around Meech watched the entire scene with cautious optimism, but also quiet skepticism.
I didn't do well in group sports.
Oh, see, we're opposite. I love a group sport.
I like to be where if I lose, it's my fault.
Oh.
Not that I know exactly why we lost because you couldn't guard your man.
After all, Ross had cultivated a persona that thrived on larger-than-life stories. In the past, he'd name-dropped other infamous street legends to stoke controversy and gain traction. But never before had he aligned himself so directly with a figure who carried the weight of a massive enterprise like BMF. To some, it felt like a perfect storm. Ross's PR brilliance meets Meech's raw, larger-than-life legacy. But behind the whispers of partnership, there was another narrative forming. Ross was using Meech's name to stay relevant in a hip-hop scene that shifts allegiance with every new scandal.
But it's you know, it got all of the candy, all of the colors.
Oh, it's a candy store, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
They got food.
Even that's confusing, the candy store thing, yeah.
Industry insiders claimed Ross was more interested in trending online than forging any meaningful alliance. Then came the concert idea, presented as a generous opportunity to help Meech regain his footing financially. It was supposed to be a benefit concert, a triumphant stage that would bring in huge sponsors and massive crowds. Behind the scenes, people started warning Meech that nothing with Ross ever comes free. Still, Meech had spent too long in a cell to turn away from what looked like a lifeline. But lifelines can become traps when the person throwing them has a hidden agenda.
I haven't forgotten my humble roots on a dirt road in South Carolina.
That's a good time to remember when your family's asking you. You're like, no, if I was on a dirt road, how much do you want?
Even before the event posters had a release date, rumors swirled among promoters, DJs, and booking agents. Some said Ross was orchestrating everything from a distance, never fully committing to the show. Others insisted he was trying to insert himself in Meech's rivalry with 50 Cent, using Meech as leverage. Let's face it, 50 Cent had played a pivotal role in keeping Big Meech's story alive. Through a hit TV series and constant references to BMF, he turned Meech from a fading memory into a cultural conversation.
You know, that's why you have friends since first grade, and people play standards. You know what you should ask a person? You should ask them where that concept of a relationship is coming from.
Yet Ross and 50 had a long-standing beef that went beyond mere diss tracks. It was personal. So, the moment Ross positioned himself as Meech's new best friend, people started raising eyebrows. At the same time, Ross's own track record stood as a glaring caution sign. He'd previously name-dropped another legendary inmate, Larry Hoover, only to quietly step away when the backlash got too hot. Those in the know started drawing parallels between that situation and the one unfolding now.
Because I don't think that it matters who's making more money. I think it matters the terms of the relationship, how you get involved in it, right? Because I think friendship is the strongest form of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They wondered if Ross was simply repeating an old pattern, attach himself to a high-profile figure, stir up attention, then back out when it benefits him. But Ross wasn't the only force in play. Another giant in the industry was about to crash this party with loud accusations and fiery commentary. For years, 50 Cent waved the BMF banner as though it was part of his own brand.
I took him to, because I was tied up on the day, I took him to like the Sugar Factory.
Is that a strip club?
It's something like that. It's almost like that for kids.
Television, social media, interviews. He gave Big Meech an amplified voice while Meech was still behind bars. Fans ate it up, and the BMF series raked in millions in viewership, solidifying both Meech's legend and 50's savvy as a producer. Suddenly, the world saw Meech step into Ross's orbit. Pictures surfaced, mentions flew, and a benefit concert was announced. The immediate question everyone asked was, wait, where does 50 Cent fit in all of this? According to sources close to both men, 50 felt blindsided. He'd invested time, money, and creative energy into preserving Meech's story. Now, it looked like Meech had switched camps overnight for a quick payday or a bigger stage. Predictably, 50 went public with his disapproval. He hurled jabs on social media, insinuating that Meech's sudden pivot was an act of betrayal. Behind closed doors, he was even more direct. Associates say he offered Meech a path to expand their partnership and keep building BMF's narrative. But Meech seemed mesmerized by Ross's grand promises. Tensions reached a boiling point when 50 posted not-so-subtle references to snitches and rats, clearly aimed at both Ross and anyone siding with him. Whether he truly believed that, or was just venting his anger is up for debate, but the effect on Meech's public image was devastating. Like it or not, 50 Cent has a talent for shaping the narrative. And Meech suddenly found himself painted as the man who turned his back on a long-time ally. Still, what really sent Meech's comeback into a nosedive was more than just social media barbs. It was the vanishing act that followed. It was supposed to be an event so grand that hip-hop historians would talk about it for years. Multiple headliners, a star-studded guest list, and promises that proceeds would help Meech stabilize his post-prison life. The hype soared until, without warning, everything came crashing down. Days before the scheduled date, venues started pulling out. Sponsors backed off or simply disappeared. Social media buzz devolved into confusion. Despite the audience's excitement, the concert was canceled, leaving fans frustrated and Meech bewildered. The million-dollar deals that had been teased, clothing lines, film tie-ins, maybe even docuseries spin-offs, suddenly evaporated. In the aftermath, one question floated above all others. Where was Rick Ross? For someone who was so vocal in promoting the event, he was suspiciously quiet now. Meanwhile, Meech was left carrying the blame. looking like the figurehead of a failed operation. Online chatter pinned the fiasco on him, claiming poor organization and shady deals. But insiders whispered that Ross had quietly pulled strings behind the scenes, orchestrating the collapse so he could walk away clean and pin the fallout on others. Meech, fresh out of prison and already dealing with the stigma of his past, had little defense. Watching the supporters he hoped to win over fade away one by one, he saw the financial lifeline he'd counted on dry up in real time. Worse still, his once strong alliance with 50 Cent was in tatters. This wasn't just a business loss, it was a personal betrayal that struck a nerve with the entire hip-hop community. The industry thrives on spectacle. When a major figure like Big Meech finds himself embroiled in drama, everyone tunes in. But when that drama involves accusations of underhanded deals and backstabbing, even the most reserved insiders start talking. Whack 100, known for his no-nonsense commentary, didn't hold back. He openly criticized how Meech had effectively tossed aside a lucrative future with 50 for an uncertain gig with Ross. Meanwhile, media personalities like Andrew Schultz pointed out that 50 Cent rarely misses in a beef. If 50 targets you, there's usually a reason, and he's relentless.
Because if the concept is coming from tradition, then it may not naturally match up with the way we live right now. We live in non-traditional times. This is modern times.
Some speculated that Meech, after spending so many years away, might have been naive about the modern hip-hop business climate. Others claimed that desperation for a quick financial win clouded his judgment. Either way, voices from every corner of the culture chimed in, pointing out that Meech had aligned himself with a man who'd already shown questionable loyalty in the past. And it wasn't just talking heads. Promoters, venue managers, and lesser-known associates started leaking information, contractual details that never got finalized, payments that never showed up, meetings canceled at the last second. A pattern emerged that seemed to confirm one central idea. Rick Ross was more invested in grabbing headlines than helping Meech build a legacy. But this conspiracy of silence and half-truths goes deeper. Ross's suspicious behavior after the fiasco made people question his motives in an entirely different way. While Big Meech scrambled to salvage his finances and repair broken relationships, Rick Ross appeared with an unexpected ailment, a shoulder injury. One day, he was enthusiastically hyping up ventures. The next, he was showing off a sling and muttering about vague incidents. The timing was so precise, it raised eyebrows across the board. Some fans speculated that Meech or his affiliates, enraged by the alleged betrayal, had confronted Ross. Others theorized Ross staged the injury for sympathy, diverting attention from the canceled concert and the ensuing chaos. After all, Ross has a history of dramatic moves when cornered. At the same time, Ross pivoted to promoting a mysterious boss token, urging his followers to invest in what critics called a classic pump and dump scheme. People who had once seen him as a legitimate entrepreneur started questioning whether his business model was built on hype rather than genuine substance.
It's not one of those things that you play. Like, you can play basketball, football, but you don't want to play boxing.
Yeah, but I did well, and also I never looked like that. So how did you get into boxing?
Meanwhile, Meech's family reportedly struggled with basic bills, a stark contrast to Ross's lavish displays of wealth. The most unsettling part? Ross's track record. He'd once name-dropped Larry Hoover, only to vanish when that situation became complicated. In court, he revealed he'd been a corrections officer, contradicting the kingpin persona he'd pushed through his music. To this day, some industry veterans label him a master manipulator who hops from controversy to controversy, gathering clout and leaving wreckage in his wake. Which begs the question, why didn't Big Meech see the signs earlier? Could this entire fiasco have been avoided? As the dust settled, Big Meech found himself at a crossroads. On one hand, he still retained a legendary name that commanded respect in certain circles. On the other, he'd alienated a key ally, 50 Cent, whose financial and creative power could have changed Meech's life trajectory. The canceled concert was more than just lost revenue. It was a public embarrassment that made him look unprepared and easily manipulated. Could Meech mend fences with 50 Cent? Some argue it's possible if he takes accountability and rebuilds trust piece by piece. Others say the damage is too severe. After all, 50 is known for his unwavering stance in a feud. What about Ross? If rumors are true, their alliance disintegrated faster than it formed. Meech might have to rely on his own connections or new partners if he hopes to bounce back. That means forging relationships in a world that has drastically changed since his incarceration.
You know, he's posturing himself this way so he doesn't have to give his relatives money.
I'm a man of the people, Curtis.
Digital platforms, streaming, brand partnerships, these aren't the same hustle Meech once knew. Yet one thing remains certain. People love a redemption story. If Meech finds a way to rise above this scandal, sidestep the drama, and focus on legitimate projects, he might still salvage his name and rebuild an empire on his own terms. The question is whether the trust he lost, both from fans and potential allies, can ever be fully regained. And that leads to the final piece of this puzzle, a bigger lesson about how quickly alliances can form and crumble when money and power are on the line. Hip-hop has always been about more than just music. It's a culture of personality, image, and reputation. When someone like Big Meech steps back into the public eye, he's not just entering a music scene, he's stepping into a battlefield where perception can be the difference between building an empire or losing it all. Rick Ross may have extended a hand initially, but that hand came with strings attached. Whether he intended to help or use Meech is something we may never fully confirm. But the outcome speaks volumes. The canceled concert, the lost revenue, the soured friendships, each is a reminder that in this game, you have to watch what people do, not just listen to what they say. At the same time, 50 Cent's involvement highlights the complexity of loyalty. He stood by Meech for years, gave him a platform, introduced him to a whole new audience. But the moment Meech got tempted by another offer, that alliance fractured. Loyalty is priceless, but it also can't be taken for granted.
That's no noise, man. No noise. When you just feel a sharp pain in your sharp pain in your back, you know you're in the wrong place. You wasn't supposed to be in that yard.
For every fan who's disappointed, there's another quietly saying, "I told you so." The biggest betrayal doesn't always come from an obvious enemy. Sometimes it appears as a smiling ally offering you a way forward, until the second you sign on the dotted line. In the end, Big Meech's comeback turned into a cautionary tale, reminding everyone that trust and betrayal are two sides of the same coin. He thought he was walking into a triumphant homecoming, but instead found himself entangled in a saga of clashing egos, shattered deals, and hidden agendas. The road back to respect won't be easy. Yet nothing in hip-hop stays still forever. Meech might rebuild, forging new alliances, or possibly repairing the old one with 50 Cent. Rick Ross might move on to the next spectacle, continuing to flaunt wealth and controversy. And the rest of the industry will watch, ready to latch onto the next big storyline that dominates social feeds and barbershop conversations. If there's one takeaway from this entire saga, it's that the line between friend and foe can blur in an instant. When fame and fortune hang in the balance, even the strongest alliances can crumble. Keep your eyes open and your circle small. Because in this game, your greatest triumph can become your biggest downfall in a heartbeat. Remember, these are complex issues with multiple layers of truth, rumors, and speculation swirling around. Always verify claims through credible sources. The names and stories discussed here reflect ongoing chatter in the hip-hop community, and additional details could surface at any time.